a unique opportunity to speak on your platform. Actually, Community Development Alliance is a registered civil society organization, a grassroots civil society organization that is headquartered in the capital of the Upper West Region, Wa. And basically, those policies addresses the felt need of the ordinary people living in the Upper West Region and by extension Northern Ghana. And also looking at how operation for the past decade and has worked in various sectors, in the health sector, in the agricultural sector, on issues of social protection, national policies that have direct bearing on impact on the generality of the Ghanaian populace. So this work that we are probably going through a transition phase in our national response to COVID-19 from where we sit of fighting COVID-19. So in that context, we thought that it was more appropriate to do a work such as this, that should inform a certain broader national conversation as to how well we have managed.
Great. And in embarking on that national exercise to actually shape public discourse, help us understand the procedures or the methods by which you came by these findings, because you've talked about a lot of things, irregular procurement and corruption risk. How did you come by all these?
I'm sure you may have seen a copy of it, at least the soft copy of the report.
Sure.
But principally, when we have the standards globally in doing work such as this, so we recruited a very experienced consultant through a very competitive process. So we looked at various global standards in terms of similar works that are taking place the world over, and methodologies that have been accepted as benchmarks to conducting such studies. So we looked at one of them, which was very central to this particular procurement systems, often generally described as MAPS. It was actually initially developed in 2003. More substantially, this work has to do largely with the key informant interviews of people who have information relative to the report that we are looking at, the documentation on the subject matter. We have to interview other civil society actors who are in a very thorough, detailed methodological process that was employed, military and policy framework, looking at the institutional and market practices, and basically ending up with the accountability, integrity, and transparency of the public procurement systems. And so all the information that we gathered in terms of documenting what we wanted, that information was subjected to these cardinal principles of the MAPS assessment tool, and on the basis of which conclusions and findings were drawn, beyond the concept of the red flag. And so basically, all these information that we gathered through such work, we have to subject all our findings and all our observations from the interviews, the document reviews, to a process, whole methodological process upon which you can draw inferences or conclusions based on the observed patterns or trends that will fit questions to the methodology. I would say that from where we sit, we do believe that we have applied. People who have done similar work and have practiced that in other jurisdictions have to peer review this work to see, that this is a standard report that can be issued. And the peer review report assessment.
The desk review that you did, for instance, you've talked about the procurement document. So do I get the impression that you got?
The report clearly, it tells you that we did not get all the procurement-related documents. But in fact, suffice it to say that we got some relevant documents that contained those facts. And we have interviewed people that confirm those facts. So where specific figures are mentioned and the dates are mentioned, those, based on which you can actually capture same in your report. So basically, if you notice that this report is filled with a lot of data in terms of figures, facts, and people who there's sufficient information that we probably did not cover maybe 20% of all the documentation. Mind you, the COVID expenditure is way in the range. So it is so impracticable for us to be able to access all the procurement-related documents to inform this study. It is even within the give us a sense of direction as to how this COVID-19 response relief and record that conversation around these bigger issues.
Great. You talk about having spoken to government officials.
You often do know that like a journalist, we are civil society, we're not like you, but even in and publicly, basically knowing the kind of system we run, which is quite vindictive in terms of public officers, probably will not be able to mention specific individuals who gave out what information, who assisted in what, and all of that. That would be, of course, required to conduct a civil society informed COVID-19 corruption risk assessment report could be, and how we can all apply our thought processes in ensuring that our government comes alive in terms of its responsibilities to accounting for every cedi of public funds deployed to fight a dreaded pandemic. Where are we in our COVID response? Have we deployed the resources available to us judiciously, and how well?
Exactly, Salifu Isifu Canton, who is Executive Director of the Community Development Alliance, which actually did the corruption risk assessment of COVID-19 expenditure. Now, I agree with you that you cannot mention names, but at least you can tell us.
I told you the.
Can you say that again? There's been I think we're losing you. Hello, Sally. Ask a further question. I just would want to find out also the source of funding for this particular assessment. And then we'll continue corruption risk assessment of COVID-19 expenditure. Yes, Salifu, thank you very much for joining us. So, who funded the assessment that you did? I'm asking you, what's your source of funding? Which institution funded the report that you put together?
Yes, actually we were funded. We actually saw an open competitive call, global call, for small grant. After a couple of discussions, reviews of our work, and also getting references from some of our previous partners like David and our 12-month project intervention that is titled Strengthening COVID-19 Action Process, that at least generates some useful evidence to inform a broader public conversation on health money that is available to us for this work for the 12-month period is 27,000 British pounds. Being able to use part of the resources to convene a national civil society dialogue around the findings of this work, and we will continue to engage specific issues of the findings that are very much worrying to the citizens, and will require that our agencies of state will take action in terms of responding to the civic demand.
Instance and irregular procurement. You talk about contract awarded to 4 Ghanaian garment manufacturing companies who had been giving loans of $10 million, and the companies had been selected, and the companies were also not registered with the Public Procurement Authority and engaged in restrictive tendering. When you say it was without tender, what do you mean?
When with the tender processes as known to our public procurement laws, what basically that meant is that these were companies that were. We thought that there was risks there, particularly looking at some of the companies, the owners, and their proximity to those red flags, and then we have to highlight that.
Talking about our procurement processes, we do know that per our procurement processes, these companies not sole sourced, and if that was the situation, how did that not go according to our Public Procurement Act?
Well, the nature of the contracts, as we saw, probably will not even meet the requirements for sole sourcing per the analysis. If you look at the report, seen clearly that our procurement laws has made adequate provisions for emergency-related procurement methods. So in every emergency situation, you would actually find some provisions in our procurement on the basis of the evidence that we have seen that they have complied with the basic minimum standards that are required even under sole sourcing and work or services that they provide. We did not at that threshold. And then when we look at their proximity to the persons with authority, just those procurements.
Now, let's get to another issue. You talk about contract for supply of suppliers ware and how much was spent on this procurement. Now, is it an indication that
Sufficient documents relative to those kind of procurements? It is possible there could be some additional documents. That is how can we approach in providing more information. We'll be happy if government can provide adequate information to say that, yes, we did have go through this, yes, there is our own regulations. We'll be so happy. This is the way we generate conversations around accountability. Information. Now I have the opportunity to put that out and say, look, they got it wrong here. We had this information. They probably didn't get all of that they needed. So we are putting it out for the public to consume.
information?
Like I told you, we have done key informant interviews. We have managed to get significant information from that has formed the basis upon which this report was concluded. So based on what is available to us, we think that it is useful to trigger a broader public conversation around this issue.
But Salifu, my point is simple. My question is simple. So if you want information, did you request the information from the appropriate agencies?
Yes, I think we've done that. We've had this discussion with the person of very vital information that was needed for this work.
For instance, when it comes to the supply of 18,000 Veronica Backer, did they not make available these documents to you? What did they tell you?
Hello, your voice is not very clear in the last.
Consultants speak to. What were the responses of the agency in question when it got?
Look at how we managed the response. There were actually multiple agencies that were involved. A number of them, for example, through the Ministry of Local Government and this Assembly Common Fund Administrator, huge angle. There are several of those procurements also done. From the interministerial coordinating work unit and the technical unit, there are various levels of procurement reference, and I think I will need to discuss with the consultant before I put those specifics out and discuss that with the consultant who had personally conducted most of the interviews and with some of our team of interviewers and data collectors. We have to aid. It will be good that is also put out so that we can inform our citizens as to how well we have utilized public resources.
This is put out this report and are unable to state your sources. So for the agencies that will have to take action, how will they go about what action to take?
Kojo, your voice is very nice to hear on the platform this morning. I'm an avid follower of you. I should say that quickly. But here. We're not conducting a forensic audit or an investigation to prosecute people, suppose advocacy organizations. Our focus is to raise the issues and generate accepting what the lawyers probably about that. I would think that we probably could have been looking at the comment and say, look, we as a country have spent over 20 billion in fighting COVID. How well we have utilized that? I think that could have been a more pointed advocacy based on at least the evidence that we have put out. Research like this. You don't come and say, oh, it's Kojo who gave me information A. It's Joy FM who gave me information B. It's City FM who gave me information C. Are done. And that is not how they are utilized. When we narrow it down as though this is a BNI kind of information audit or EOCO or maybe Auditor General, and then we want to see, okay, who is it or which agency gave what? That kind of conversation does not engender that public conversation. Whatever information that is available, if there are red flags to actions to trigger broader public discourse. Perhaps there are many who have done similar work but have not yet put out their reports. That will be
one point that you make, that even the fact that you sought information and it was not forthcoming is something that which I really struggle to wrap my head around. It was the detail of about 100,000 of them accounted for it. I just want to check. I mean, did you you checked every single district and not even one of them, not even by accident or coincidence, accounted for the money they were given?
And then, as we speak, probably if there's a special audit or a more routine response initiative to a crisis situation, it should be possible for these assemblies to vividly account for those public resources advanced to all our district assemblies. At least for those we have contacted, we did not get sufficient responses that suggest that they've received this kind of money during the COVID to support them to respond. There are some assemblies that even assembly members, some people even with Ryzen. It is within that context we say that, look, even if we have assembly members who are unaware and do not know, how else would know? So for us, it is flagging those issues and asking all of us that, look, these are our observation and jurisdiction over all of these agencies. A similar work has been done just recently in Malawi, and the Malawian government has taken responsibility. They are basically holding public office, senior public office holders accountable for every amount to ensure that when an individual spends a huge chunk of his resources on an issue, it is good to take stock.
Evidence that procurement laws were broken in our response to the COVID-19 pandemic?
My dears, have been stated, and specific laws and specific aspects of laws, procurement regulations were cited, and specific, for example, company getting the contract. They were not licensed to do that kind of business. They didn't have any license from HEFRA. Or be licensed before you even now have the opportunity to do the work. Now, we have stated that the facts as available to us, this comes in Ghana, as far as we are concerned, relative to the business they were given a contract to do. So when we list all of that, it gives you it is incumbent on citizens of goodwill to amplify their voices forward from here when we are confronted with similar crises. For me, that is the conversation we are more concerned about, and think that will be very useful for our country.
Or public contracts, why do you want that done?
My dear brother, it is, this is particularly when we have time. Why did you do this? Oh, you see, we were not in normal times. We were not in normal times. So, you see, when we have a societal friend, I am a superintendent of our public resources, and I want to dish out contracts. Then I say, oh, Kojo, can you please come? There's this work in my office. Are you interested? He says, yes, okay. Can you bring your application? Then I give the contract to Kojo. You see, somebody may say, oh, this is a crisis situation. Maybe Kojo has a capacity back from that level. So when you have a system with clear relationships, sometimes in between public interest, it is important, crucially important, that to be able to clear down of it in Accra. We can all be satisfied that after all, our government set out to do a good thing, and the processes it are.
Christopher Canton, Executive Director of the Community Development Alliance, for joining us this morning. We're very grateful to you. Still, now you have a northeastern part of Accra. You have a load shedding timetable from the 10th to the 17th of May 2020. We'll be right back after these messages.
After 30 years in business, Reggie Manuel Gray Limited is happy to share a story. City homes to shelter hundreds of thousands and develop